talking about this 11% poll, you mentioned before 38% Trump, and you said you don't care about, you said you don't know what people are looking at, and you don't care about this 11% generic poll. Why this election, basically 100% of the polls were incorrect of the general election? Why?
Well, because a bunch of reasons. Like one, polling in terms of as a science is harder today than ever before. You don't have a bunch of people hooked up to landlines. You have people all over the place. You have some people using online ads. Then the bigger problem is it's clear there were a lot of people who were going to vote for Trump who either didn't want to say they're going to vote for Trump or they like messing with the media. And so the people so you end up with a skewed sample. And so I don't trust polling in general. Like if 50 polls show basically the same thing, like more likely than not, that's probably true, but only probably true. I think that it's just much more complicated, especially in this volatile era.
But Mike, did you have any inkling at the run-up, the day of the election last year, did you have any inkling that they were so off? I mean, look at the states of Ohio. They had Clinton winning on pretty much all the polls. We're talking state level, not national, by 10 points. Trump wins Ohio by 9, and it's called early in the evening. Trump in Pennsylvania. They had Trump lose in Pennsylvania. I mean, whoever thought Michigan, Wisconsin, Jim's state that he's governor of, nobody ever thought what happened that they just missed it.
No, it's so true. And so tomorrow is a year to the day from the election. Wednesday, a year to the date from the election. If you flash back to then, I can tell you from my conversations with the Trump campaign on election day, they thought that they were moving in the right direction in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. And they did note that Secretary Clinton hadn't exactly been camping out in Wisconsin. But they thought they were going to lose Florida and therefore the election. And that's why they were utterly unprepared for what came during the transition and after. So, yes, we were surprised. They were surprised. And I was, some of you were probably there. How many of you were at Secretary Clinton's victory party? At the Javits Center. So it was in that atrium, and so it had a literal glass ceiling. And I showed up to her victory party, and there were these two guys who were in charge of the confetti cannons. And inside the cannons was confetti that was shaped like shards of glass, so that they were going to be able to shoot these out and you'd be able to see the glass ceiling breaking. These two guys were standing. Nobody even gave them a chair, a stool. These two guys stood there till 2 a.m. And then they finally said to them, "You can just go home." We're not. So this set, and you probably saw it on TV. So this set at the Javits Center, behind her was a 6-story. This thing was like Epcot. They had a 6-story letter H, her logo. And then in front of her was a 4-story American flag. This was not built for a concession. And then Trump was at this little ballroom at a hotel where like you could get like an $8 Sprite because they thought the victory party was going to be over at the Javits Center.
So I heard the most fascinating interpretation of of getting the election wrong from this. So there's this guy who spends his life just trying to game the algorithm to get traffic for political stories, and he had the most convincing theory that I've heard. He said the assumption in the public and the media is that the media got the election wrong because we just don't understand middle America. We don't understand people who own guns or go to church or serve in the military. True enough. He said, no. He said, what people got wrong, and this is really important for even life today, he said there were 2 elections taking place, and one of them was the one that probably all of us in this room were paying attention to. It was the one that we were watching on TV screens. It's the one we were reading about in the New York Times. It's the one we were sharing stories about in mainstream media. He said, but if you actually look at the polls, more than half of people who voted got the majority of their news on Facebook for the final months of the election. He said, as somebody who had his head in the machine of Facebook, he said you could actually see this happening because when you're in the machine, the algorithms, forget the Russia stuff. The Russia stuff may or may not matter on the margins. He's like, he argues, and I agree with this, is like, it's not the Russia stuff that matters. It's like what people don't understand is all the algorithms do inside of Facebook is give you more and more of what you've wanted. And what people who are interested in the campaign wanted is they either wanted like really hard-edged stuff on this side or really hard-edged stuff on this side. So if you're in the machine, you weren't seeing anything remotely in the middle. You were getting crazier and crazier stuff pumped through your feed and into your mind. And so you were seeing a completely different, hyper-polarized, in many cases like pretty dishonest on both sides, version of what you thought was the truth. And that's what people missed. And that's what people continue to miss. Because even though you look at the hearings on Capitol Hill with Facebook, it's so much about the paid. And Facebook will say, well, it was only a couple rubles. Like, how much can you actually influence an election? That's true. Yeah, but it's the free stuff. That's what people don't understand. The targeting tools that you and I can use on Facebook for free. You can target your message without anyone verifying who you are or what you're doing, and you can target it to a gun owner in Michigan who's white, and like we can all do this, and it's all organic, and there's not necessarily much cost to it. And I think people are just now getting their heads around how much power we've surrendered to these massive platforms that, by the way, know more about you than your spouse probably knows about you.
So I think the moral to the story is we should all be surrendering more power to Axios. Right?
You're here.